This week, we will find out the future of our health care as early as tomorrow. The Supreme Court will announce its ruling on the landmark Health Care Reform Act. The key issue, of course, will be that individual mandate requiring most Americans to carry health insurance. Joining me is Stephen Engel, a former clerk to Justice Kennedy, also a partner at Deckard LLP, who has delivered briefs opposing the law, and Margot Sanger-Katz, the healthcare correspondent for National Journal. Good afternoon to both of you.
Sure, happy to be here.
Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Given your experience, is there any indication, first of all, when we might hear this announcement? Also, many suspect your former boss, Justice Kennedy, could be the swing vote in any decision. Based on your thorough working knowledge of the Kennedy mind, which way will he swing?
Well, let's starting with what we do know. The court will take a recess by the end of this week. It hands down its opinions in public sessions. Currently, there's only one session scheduled. That's for tomorrow morning. But it basically has at least 2 days' worth of opinions to hand down. So the expectation is that tomorrow the court will hand down some of the opinions, and then it will tell us when later in the week it's going to issue the rest of its decisions. And if I had a bet, I think that the health care decisions will be in the second session, not tomorrow morning.
So perhaps Thursday.
That's right.
Let's get back to the question that I really want you to answer here. Your old boss, you are familiar more than most with the Kennedy legal mind. If you were a betting man, how would you bet?
See, I'm not a betting man, so I think I'm gonna have to pause on that. Look, I think Justice Kennedy asked some hard questions of both sides. I think there is a good chance that the way the court stacks up, you're going to have 4 to his left and 4 to his right, and it really could come down to his vote. But which way he's going to go, I'm waiting to see, just like everybody else.
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily, but But I'm going to take a quick break here and go to Margot. But we're going to come back to that in just a second. Margot, polling shows that most people are against the law, and we just talked about this a few moments ago. Against the law, but they support many of the provisions of the law. What does that say?
Well, I think people really don't know what's in this law, and there's very good polling that shows that. The same polls that ask people about, do you like this or that provision, also ask them, do you know that this or that provision is in the law, and they say no. There's data that people think things that are in the law that really aren't, things like death panels and a government-run option. So I think there's a lot of confusion, and what's happened is that the discussion around the law has really become sort of a symbolic issue for a lot of people, that they just feel uncomfortable with the government being this involved in their lives in some way, and they dislike it on those grounds. But it's not a really informed, policy opinion.
What do we know at this point about the Republicans or Mitt Romney's alternative plan for that matter?
So, they do have some ideas, and they're all based around the idea that they want to move more people into the individual market for insurance, because they think that if people can shop around for their own policies, then they'll be more prudent customers. The insurers will have more of an incentive to provide lower cost options. And so they want to do things that will encourage that, like allowing insurance to be sold across state lines and giving people who purchase individual policies the same kind of tax treatment that people who get insurance through their employers get. It is worth saying, though, that none of the Republicans are really talking about anything on the scale of ambition of the Affordable Care Act in terms of trying to get insurance to everyone now who doesn't have it or who can't get it.
Stephen, folks who have been following this closely and folks who watch the court, who watch the high court very closely as well, made a great deal of Justice Kennedy's questioning during the oral arguments. There were a lot of folks who, of course, tried to read into some of the questions and the tone with which he asked some of those questions. Based on Justice Kennedy's questioning during those oral arguments, what can we take away from that?
Sure. Well, I think we can take away from that Justice Kennedy is thick and hard about this case, and he had some serious questions. He pointed out the government has a heavy burden in trying to regulate people who are not in the marketplace and compel them to come into the marketplace when it's never done that before. That said, he did ask some hard questions for the challengers as well, and I really think at the end of the day, these are just questions. We're going to find out his answers pretty soon, and of course that of the rest of the court.
The Commerce Clause has been one of the amendments that has been more loosely interpreted over the years. If the High Court comes down and strikes the individual mandate, does that also mean that we are now going to enjoy a more narrow focus of the Commerce Clause specifically?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's correct. I mean, the challengers, who include my clients, have pointed out that what Congress has tried to do here by forcing people to come to purchase a product is something that they've never done before. So if the court holds that Congress really cannot, under the guise of regulating interstate commerce, compel people to come in, it's not obvious that that's a decision that's going to have a lot of apples in the future, because this is really something that Congress hasn't done before.
Margot, if it's struck down, all a part of it, what's next?
Well, I think in the immediate aftermath of a decision like that, not a whole lot is going to happen in Congress. I think it's pretty clear that the members are just not interested in reaching agreement on this issue. It's just too politically fraught. I think if they strike down the whole law, there may be some kind of emergency things that will have to be dealt with right away in terms of how Medicare is going to pay people, what will happen to seniors who are purchasing prescription drugs who are going to lose some subsidies, and other things like that. There are some programs that are funded through the law that are kind of long-standing programs with bipartisan support that could lose their funding. So there's some of those kind of housekeeping issues, but I think in terms of a kind of new approach to healthcare reform that's really broad and far-reaching, I think we're very unlikely to see anything like that. And I think if the court strikes down part of the law and there are problems that result from that, I wouldn't expect that to be resolved in the short term either.
Margot, thank you so much. Stephen, thanks as well. Appreciate your time, folks.
Sure.
Thanks for having us.
In office politics, Martin Bashir on a key